Good afternoon, everyone, both of you, or just an individual who is out there. We are starting the film club. We're up to number 4 of, or we're up to part 4 of movies from the 70s. And before I start that, I've got my Oxford Dictionary of Phrase and Fable. Now, I love Oxford dictionaries. I love all kinds of dictionaries. Um, I've got a great slang dictionary. Not sure how far it goes back. Um, I don't think that's an Oxford dictionary, but it's really cool. And I've got a variety of other dictionaries too. This dictionary here is kind of a new one that I did not know about. And it's called the Oxford Dictionary of Phrase and Fable. So, hey, Dano, how are you? Good to see you. I hope you're tucked in with a mug of Ovaltine. It's probably getting a little chilly down there. Anyway, I've just opened up my Oxford Dictionary of Phrase and Fable at random, and I'm just going to read a couple of things out of this. Let's see. Okay, first thing is panjandrum. This is a word I've never heard of. Panjandrum, a person who has or claims to have a great deal of authority or influence. I think there's a lot of that in the world these days. The word panjandrum comes from grand panjandrum, an invented phrase in a nonsense passage composed in 1755 by the English actor and dramatist Samuel Foote, with an E at the end, 1720 to 1770, to test the vaunted memory of the actor Charles Macklin, 1697 to 1797. Hey, Vince, good to see you. And then I'll read one more other thing, which actually is very apt considering what's going on today, especially in the UK and lots of places around the world. Panopticon, the name given by Jeremy Bentham in 1790 to his proposal for an institutional building, especially a prison, circular shape with the area occupied by the inmates disposed round and fully open to a view from a central vantage point. A scheme for a penitentiary based on these lines was accepted by Parliament in 1794, and at a site at Millbank, London, was chosen. But in the event, the new penitentiary, which opened in 1816 and was not built to Bentham's plan. Among later prisons constructed on the Panopticon's principle was the Stateville Prison at Joliet, Illinois, which is still in use. There we go. So that was exciting. But anyway, yeah, if you guys like to open up dictionaries at random and get your mind bent in a brand new space that you weren't thinking of, dictionaries such as the Oxford Dictionary of Phrase and Fable are a great place to start. And these things are cheap. If you have a half price books near you, you can go in and pick up something like this for, $10 or maybe $8 or something, and clutter up your house with obscure knowledge. So that is that. Okay. I think last week we ended on the abominable Dr. Phibes, which Vincent mentioned that he actually knows about. And of course, to anybody who was a teenager in the 70s who liked horror, this would have come up at your local cinema. And so following on from the Abominable Dr. Phibes, which was actually quite successful, I think, it had a sequel, which they released the next year, called Dr. Phibes Rises Again. And I also love this movie. And once again, there's a great restoration. I think Shout Factory is restoring these. And they've actually got both of these movies in a little double set that you can pick up. And the Dr. Phibes sequel is really as good as the original. Once you kind of know what happened in the original, all the stuff that gets brought up is not quite as big a surprise as it was in the original. But it's great to see Dr. Phibes rising again and going into a kind of personal battle with somebody who Dr. Phibes wants to gain access to the river of eternal life, which flows under a secret temple in Egypt. So he goes down there and is trying to take his dead wife down there and go on the journey on the river of eternal life. This is really cool. And it also has, I think it's got the actor Robert Quarry plays his nemesis, who also plays Count Yorga in a great couple of vampire movies that were released in the 70s also. I think the first one's called Count Yorga Vampire, and I'm not sure what the sequel is called. I think Vincent is going to absolutely remember the name of the Count Yorga sequel, but these films, in contrast to the Dr. Phibes films, do not really have any light comedy uh, dispersed throughout to kind of lighten the mood or be ironic in any way. Count Yorga Vampire and the sequel are just kind of scary vampire movies, although I think they were rated PG. They weren't quite as gratuitous as vampire movies tended to get towards the end of the 70s. But both Dr. Phibes and Dr. Phibes Rises Again are a great little set if you can find it used, or I think these are one of those things that kind of pop up on sale right about now due to the Halloweeny season that we are entering. So take a peek at those and then also just stream them if you can, if you have that capacity, or you can get a free trial or whatever it may be, MGM or something. If you're a member of Letterboxd, you can bring these movies up and they'll show you exactly where all the movies are currently streaming or for sale or et cetera, et cetera. So Dr. Phibes Rises Again came out in 72, and the last movie, well, let's see, actually there's a fistful more of movies from 72, so I'll try to move again as quickly as I can, but there is this whole other back page of movies from the 70s. So, and a lot of these movies were movies that I did see in a movie theater when they came out. Um, the next movie is 1972 is Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. This film is a Louis Brunel film. Louis Brunel, the great Spanish surrealist who made films with Salvador Dali back in the day. He made Large Door, and of course the infamous Chine Andalou, which starts with the eyeball getting sliced in half as the cloud goes across the moon. One of the great surrealist images in all of film. But later on in the 70s, Louis Buñuel relocated to France and basically got a producer behind him who found a way to fund quite a few really excellent films that he made in the French language. And Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, I think, was maybe one of the earlier ones. There's another one where people can't seem to get out of a room. I'm trying to remember what the name of that one is. I don't have it right on the top of my head, but Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie is obviously a kind of satire and critique of the bourgeoisie in France, the kind of upper middle class people who were aspiring to become even more upper class. And the premise of this film is kind of a group of friends who are in fact bourgeois, and they always are meeting up for dinner parties, but their dinner parties are always interrupted. They can never complete a dinner party without some kind of crazy interruption happening. And these range from kind of a pseudo revolution happening to some other things that I can't think of at the moment. But these are great watches. And he's kind of dialed his surrealism down to a more or less sort of subtle angle. And these are really excellent films to watch. There's always a surprise in them. And he also made a film that I mentioned earlier, which was Belle de Jour, the great surrealist. Once again, it's kind of a critique on the bourgeois. Catherine Deneuve plays a bored housewife who more or less has everything, but just for kicks, decides she wants to have a investigation into what being a prostitute would be like. So this is a great film also. And Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie is another great Louis Buñuel film. And he really didn't make a bad film. He made films in Mexico, and then I don't think he ever made a film in the US, but he more or less continued to make films in France, I think, until he passed away. So Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie is an excellent one. Next film from 72 is The Big Bird Cage, and that's kind of the last of the trilogy of women in cages films that Roger Corman made for New World Pictures. I think this one has Pam Grier in it also, and I'm just throwing it on there because it's like one of those guilty pleasure movies. And I think I did mention before that having really a triple screening of all those films would probably be something cool. Seems like something maybe Tarantino would do at one of his movie theaters in LA. And I'm sure the thing would be sold out. And I believe I mentioned that maybe there should be a prison style menu to go along with it. Anyway, next is looks like all of the films I'm going to be talking about today are in 1972. So I'm not going to be continuing to say 1972. Anyway, the next one is Blacula, and this is a really great twist on a vampire film. The main protagonist, as you might guess, is actually a black vampire, and I think his name was Mama Waldy. And this is kind of an origin film also, because it shows how Mama Waldy became a vampire. And how that happens is he basically is going to do some kind of a treaty. I believe he's the prince of some kind of African nation, and he's gone to Romania to make some kind of a treaty with Count Dracula himself. And this is an interesting Dracula portrayal because he's bearded, he has a mustache. It's almost kind of a, which I think he did in any original portraits that there are of Vlad Tepes, who Dracula was based on. Vlad Tepes was actually an original Romanian historical figure. And he did actually, his nickname was Vlad the Impaler. And he would just impale hundreds of people onto stakes after he conquered the territories that they lived in. And this is alluded to in the Coppola Dracula film and maybe some other Dracula films too. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe some of you guys can uh, let me know if that's true or not. Anyway, this shows how Mama Waldy and his wife become enslaved to Dracula and they're imprisoned in coffins. It's really a grim prologue to the whole story. And then hundreds of years later, he's awoken and then kind of reaps havoc across Los Angeles. And this is basically a blaxploitation film, but it has the great William Marshall playing Blacula. And later, William Marshall would actually be the king of cartoons in the fantastic Pee-wee's Playhouse television show, which won like 30 Emmy Awards or something. So if you're a fan of Pee-wee's Playhouse and you know who the king of cartoons is, you have to seek out Blacula. That's right. Yes, he was a great theater actor and also just an incredible presence. Really a magnificent voice, a classic acting voice, and just is one of those people who has such presence on the screen that you can't help but be taken in by what he's doing. I don't think Pam Grier is in the first one, but once again, this was one of those kind of films in the 70s that was so successful that they immediately greenlit a sequel to it, which is called Scream, Blacula, Scream, I think, which is weird because Blacula never did any screaming until he was, of course, killed in both movies. Anyway, next is going to be a Bronson film, as in Charles Bronson. And Charles Bronson had been an actor for a while by the time he started making movies in the 70s. I think he started making movies in the 50s. He might even possibly be in a Twilight Zone or Outer Limits. So he kind of came up through TV. And I think he was one of these actors who was a World War II veteran. And hey, Sebastian, good to see you. Yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't, although I think all of you guys have done your duty and you are in fact subscribers here now. So thank you once again. You can always like it again to just help it get out there into the film commentary algorithms, which one day I'm hoping to do. That is my dream, is to get into a film commentary algorithm. Okay. So Charles Bronson, he's in, of course, I think the previous movie I mentioned that he was in Once Upon a Time in the West, and possibly he's in a couple of earlier things too. Maybe Magnificent Seven. I think he's possibly in that also. Anyway, the movie I'm mentioning here from 72 is Chato's Land. And this is one of quite a few collaborations he did with the great British actor Michael Winner. And of course, Death Wish would be one of the more famous Bronson films, and that is a Michael Winner film also, as is Death Wish 2. I'm not sure how far Michael Winner went in the Death Wish series, but definitely I know he's in the first two, maybe the third. I'm not sure. So Chato's Land is it's a Western, it's a revenge Western, and probably this kind of thing would not be allowed now because of a variety of things that happen in the movie, but also we have Bronson actually playing a Native American, and he sort of plays the archetypal loner who wants to be just left to himself with his family off in the middle of nowhere. And he's got a wife, and I think maybe he has a couple of kids or something. And I'm not sure what tribe he belongs to. And I think he's actually supposed to be kind of a half breed. So he's half Mescalero or Apache, and then maybe half Spaniard or something like that, or half Mexican. But Bronson does a great job. He's got such a great screen presence, and people come out and they are kind of sort of renegade cowboy type people, possibly scalp hunters, definitely nefarious individuals. And they take advantage of his absence and kind of ruin his life. And so the whole film is about um, Chato seeking revenge on everybody who basically destroyed his family. And it's great. And he's kind of passive aggressive and has the gift to disappear and reappear. And I think maybe it's 9 or 10 people who go after him and then decide that they need to take him out also. So the film is great. It's not overblown. It's just basically extremely nihilistic and kind of existential. And I think this is a really cool film. I actually own this one. So if you can stream this film and you like Charles Bronson, I definitely recommend it. It's one of the ones that's not quite, doesn't have quite the profile than some of the other ones do. But Bronson is great, and you can see how he's just totally fit and he's riding a horse all over the place. And he's really a badass, and he's kind of just in the zone. And it's an excellent watch. So I definitely recommend Chato's Land. Hey, Don Joe, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Next film, also from 72, and looking at this list of 1972, it's crazy to think all these movies came out in the same year. Actually, Jen's not quite here at the moment. Her schedule brings her in more or less in the middle of this. Maybe she'll pop in and say hi. I'm not sure. We'll see. So, and I had hoped to include her in the discussion of this next film, also due to her Southern provenance, but we didn't get around to watching it, unfortunately. But maybe again when I hit another film of Southern provenance. But this is one of the more famous films that takes place in the Southern United States and is quite a notorious film. And it is a John Boorman film, who's a British director. And that film is none other than Deliverance. And anybody who's seen Deliverance knows about this film and its reputation. And I can't remember the Boorman film that I was speaking of earlier when I first started this, but I think I mentioned a John Boorman film earlier. Somebody might possibly be able to remind me. Too many films. Anyway, yeah, Deliverance, excellent film. And it's based on an equally excellent book by native Georgian, and I mean Georgia, the state of Georgia in the US, not the country of Georgia. And that is a man called James Dickey. And he also has a great little cameo in the film. I think he plays the sheriff at the end, who basically tells the survivors, well, I think you guys just ought to kind of, don't come back here. Just kind of stick to your own neighborhood. And the way he says it is just great because it's not overtly antagonistic or threatening, but it has a very understated southernness to it, which people in the South, I think it's just a Southern culture thing where some of them are just quite reticent, and everything they say may possibly have an alternative meaning to it. But if you know Southern people, and I know quite a few, and obviously I'm married to a Southern woman, and I have great, fantastic Southern in-laws. There is a little bit of a kind of reticence that goes along with some things that they say, and it's utterly charming. But anyway, Deliverance is quite a fascinating film on a number of levels. Um, and it's a really interesting premise because it's very modern premise because you've got these buddies and they've been friends for a long time. And it seems like they've been on quite a few trips together, and you guys can chime in if you have or have not seen Deliverance. But there's a couple of them there's one that's decidedly the alpha male, and that is Burt Reynolds. And he's always just kind of, okay, we're doing this. And come on, you guys don't want to be wimps. And, this is how we're going to do it. And kind of every step of the way, his fellow companions and buddies are just kind of, well, okay, all right, we'll do that. And his friends are John Voight, Ned Beatty, and Ron. Gosh, this is terrible. I'm leaving out the name of the third person, who is even the most uh, laid back person. Maybe somebody can remind me who that is. Um, I'm annoyed I can't remember who it is right now. But all three of them are highly dubious in what's going to happen, and the whole premise also, which is yet another level to the movie, um, is that they've got to go take this kayaking trip because there's this river that is no longer going to be there because they're going to build a dam and the river is going to vanish. So this is kind of an interesting comment on things not lasting forever. And I also see that as kind of a commentary on how macho behavior doesn't really last forever also. Maybe I'm reading into that a little bit too much, but it's definitely there as an aspect of the film, which is nothing lasts forever. And that can include a river going to a certain place and also just the inherent Ronnie Cox. Yes, thank you. That can also include the inherent machismo that men are born with. We're born with, testosterone. It peaks at a certain time and goes downhill, in which case we have to deal with that aspect if we had that to a lesser or greater extent. And here, in fact, is my better half, and she might just say hello quickly. I don't know. And I was, in fact, discussing Deliverance right now. Yes. So here she is.
Hello.
Here she is.
How's everybody?
They just want, yay.
What did you say about
Hello.
Deliverance?
Oh, I was just talking about how it's got kind of a underlying theme that nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
You know, where they're going and they're
Flooding.
they're going to kayak on the river because the river is going to be dammed.
Mhm.
And then how Burt Reynolds is hyper macho. And then one of the first thing that happens in the movie is basically his macho-ness is removed
Right.
because he
Breaks his
breaks his leg.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he breaks his leg. And this is kind of a trope in a few movies. For example, it's in Guns of Navarone, where we've got the character who's kind of the British character the British officer who basically nothing can stop him from his duty. And then he breaks his leg and they have to drag him all over the place. And then finally he's going, leave me behind, to basically be tortured by the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to be macho to the very, very end. And so that's kind of an interesting theme in films.
I have my own personal encyclopedia of cinema right here.
Whether she likes it or not.
He really does talk about this stuff a lot, and we watch a lot of movies. It was very deep.
But Jennifer also finds a way out by just grabbing a device and going. So that's okay. Hello, Line Cook, and hi, Angelina. So I was just catching up on Deliverance. I'm not going to go into all of the nuances of this, but on repeated watchings, there's different elements that bubble up, especially if you're familiar with some more of the kind of obviousness of the film, which I'm not going to go into. Any of us who have watched it know about that, but it's a great ensemble piece. And thank you, Don Joe, for mentioning Ronnie Cox. And if you want to see the great spectrum of Ronnie Cox's acting ability, just watch him in Deliverance and then watch him in any of the movies he was in that he made with Paul Verhoeven. I think he's the loathsome executive in RoboCop. And then once again, he's a loathsome executive or governor in Total Recall. So I love Ronnie Cox. He's great. And then, of course, Ned Beatty is amazing also. And in the same decade, you can watch him in Deliverance. And then, of course, see him later in the movie Network, where he reads Howard Beale, The Riot Act, in the boardroom. So, Deliverance, amazing film, really quite the watch. And if you can see it in a cinema and you haven't seen Deliverance, or even if you have, because a lot of these films are being brought back now to repertory cinemas. If you're lucky enough to have a big cinema in your town that will have like a season showing older films on the big screen, go see them because this is what they were made for. So I'm going to leave Deliverance. Deliverance is awesome. Probably all of you guys know it. If you don't, I'm going to recommend it heartily. And also for the previous installments of this film club thing, I've gone back and I've generated chapters So there's chapters for the live stream now. So you can skip through to the ones that you want to hear me talk about, or watch the whole thing, or don't watch any of it. It's up to you. So after Deliverance, the next film that I've got for you is the film Ludwig by Luchino Visconti. And I've mentioned films of his before. Um, I think I started with, maybe I had Senso and then Death in Venice and maybe another one. Not sure exactly. The Leopard. So this is another great film by Luchino Visconti. And it's really a biopic, and it's about the completely nutty King of Bavaria in the 19th century. Basically, I don't think he was king for very long, but he built all those crazy castles in Bavaria. The really famous one, the Neuschwanstein Castle, the kind of fairy tale castle that the castles in Disneyland are based on. And he built a lot of other really wild stuff and really was just kind of lost, didn't care at all about governing or being a real king, got incredibly insulted when people suggested he should maybe spend his money on the population and kind of fix things throughout the land. He was kind of going, I have a vision, I'm doing this other thing. And also, he was a huge patron of Richard Wagner, the composer. And he was a huge fan of Wagner before he was even king. And Wagner was such a rabble rouser, effectively a sort of revolutionary within Bavaria at the time, because the country of Germany did not really exist then. It was a whole bunch of little kingdoms, and they had loose treaties with each other. And it was more or less like Italy, which was the same thing at the time. It had a bunch of different little kingdoms with princes and kings, and they all made treaties with each other. It wasn't actually a country. So once Ludwig became king, and I think at this point, Wagner was in exile for being revolutionary. One of the first things he did was to get in touch with Wagner and say, "Come on back to Germany. I mean, come on back to Bavaria. I'm going to set you up in the nicest palace. Basically, going to build a palace for you. I'm going to give you a stipend that's just ridiculous. Your job is just going to be to sit there and write operas." So basically, Wagner had the best gig in the world at the time. And that's exactly what he did. And so if it wasn't for King Ludwig II of Bavaria, we wouldn't have had any of those magnificent operas, a lot of which are some of my favorite pieces of music. And they're just crazy. I couldn't really even begin to comprehend them until really I was in my 40s, because it was just musically, I couldn't even get there. I remember when I was studying composition at Cal Arts, one of the big things you have to study when you go to music school is specifically Tristan and Isolde by Wagner, because it's considered really a breaking point between music of the past and what would be music of the future. And Wagner was really bending tonality and harmony. And it's very interesting what happened, but couldn't comprehend it till I was in my 40s. And so you stop that. Stop it, or you're going to have to go upstairs and think about what you've done, not even mentioning what's happening here. So okay, yeah. And once again, um, Visconti has done an amazing job. He's actually gone to the palaces and the castles.
Hold on.
He's gone to the actual palaces and castles that Ludwig built, and he's filmed there. So if you want to see something really, really sumptuous and amazing, get this or um, stream this film, and you can also get an idea of the complete, just sort of obsession that Ludwig had with art and music. And it's really just a beautiful thing. And really have to be thankful that he did, in fact, ignore his population during this. So I'm not sure exactly how bad it was for the population, but I think there were wars going on and stuff like that. And they kept asking him for more money for the military. And he was going, this other thing going on. So he was a huge aesthetic, obsessive individual, and it's a really interesting film, and I like it, and I recommend it. Um, in his way, I guess he might be like a kind of Michael Jackson type character in the way Michael Jackson built Neverland and had all that weird obsession with building amusement parks and stuff like that. Although Michael Jackson was on a considerably minor scale than Ludwig II. We'll just leave it there. Um, Next movie, also 1972, is a movie called Solaris. And this is, all of these movies are favorite movies of mine, but Solaris is the next movie after, I think it's the next movie after Andrei Rublev. Maybe there's one in between, I'm not sure. But it's a science fiction movie based on a science fiction novel by a Russian writer. I think his name is Stanisław Lem. And this is a fantastic Tarkovsky movie. And the premise for this film is there's been a space station or an exploration of a planet called Solaris, which is extremely distant, and a exploration has gone there to check it out, see what's going there, and nobody's heard anything from it since. Um, so I think one person came back and survived, and then he's explaining what went on there. Nobody can make any sense of it. So they decide to send another expedition out there. And the story is based around a man who is preparing to go on that expedition and what happens to him when he goes out there. And this is just such a otherworldly film in so many different ways. Everything is great about it. The music, the cinematography, the acting. This is a film that I never get tired of. And once again, if you can see this film in a cinema, you can probably only see um, a digital version of it, I would imagine. Or possibly there's been a print struck from the new restored version of it. The Criterion restoration of it is really, well, it's probably Moss Film that actually restored it, but it's a great restoration. And I think they do digital screenings of it sometime. If you can see this in a cinema, definitely go and see it there. It's a fantastic watch and really just leaves you someplace else when you come out of the viewing of it. Let's see. Sebastian says, Solaris is awesome. Can't get over the awful remake with George Clooney. Yeah. Never watched it. Don't have a plan. And it can just stay where it is. But if that's the only version of it you've seen, I recommend you go back to the beginning and watch the original, because the original is just a film that just, does stuff to the inside of your brain. Sebastian also says Tarkovsky was kind of an anti-Kubrick. He's all over poetry while Kubrick's all over brain. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really compare filmmakers like that. I mean, there's a lot of, seems like the really great ones have their own individual voices in the same way that music does. I think that some films that are really genuinely great iconic films, they can't help but influence other people on some level. I mean, if you have an active subconscious and an active consciousness, you can't help but be influenced by other great things that people are creating. So in music, I mean, I just try to you can't help but compare bands and artists and all those types of things. But, people who are really kind of transcendental, when you listen to what they're doing, you get into a space that's a transcendental space. So if you're listening to Billie Holiday, if I'm listening to Billie Holiday, I don't sit there and go, well, she does this one thing all the time, and compared to Ella Fitzgerald or compared to Sarah Vaughan or Lena Horne. I don't make those kind of comparisons. They're kind of planets off in space by themselves, and they have a radiance and a gravity to them. And that's where they kind of live for me. I mean, everybody's different, though. Their perception of things is different. And it's sort of human nature to compare things. And so that's it. I love Solaris. It's a great film. Um, After Solaris, the next film I have is Tales from the Crypt. And it's kind of loud over there. So just a little bit. Thanks. Tales from the Crypt is one of these great Amicus portmanteau films. And Amicus was a British production company. And portmanteau films are ones where they have kind of a series of stories. And I think they used to do these in the past a little bit, but they really came to fore in the 60s and 70s. And Amicus specifically was a British production company and did quite a few of these horror portmanteau films. I think Tales from the Crypt might have been the first one, and it's a great one. And it has, if you saw the still that I had from the post announcement of this, Joan Collins in it. It's got the great Sir Ralph Richardson as the monk in the catacombs that all the people get lost and end up in. He's the one talking to them. And it also has Peter Cushing in it. And I'm trying to think of who else is in it. Joan Collins, Peter Cushing, Patrick McGee, who plays he's in quite a few of these films. I think he's in Clockwork Orange. He plays the writer that has the home invasion. And he's in quite a few other, I mean, he's a great character actor. And this Tales from the Crypt, I think it's got 3 or 4 stories in it. It's got a little bit of humor in it. And it's an excellent film if you haven't seen it. Won't give away any of the plots in particular. I'll let you just discover them. But this is a film that I saw when it came out in the 70s in a movie theater with my friend. And we both loved this film. We couldn't get back to see it again. before it stopped showing. I think it showed for maybe a week, and it's really cool. I own it. There's a great Blu-ray of it that looks really nice. So stream this one if you can. It's also a great Halloween type film because it's got all the stuff that you want for Halloween. It's genuinely creepy, and it's got really odd stuff going on in it, and all of the actors in it are really excellent, and they go all in. Um, Next is another three-story film, another Amicus film, and this film is Asylum. And this film is excellent. And the premise is basically a psychiatrist or mental doctor goes for a job interview at a big manor, and he basically is going to be the lead doctor, and he's going there for an interview. And part of his interview process is to interview some patients, one of which is masquerading as a doctor. And so I think Patrick McGee is in this one also. But incidentally, the house that where he goes to the interview for, it's a big mansion, big Gothic revival looking mansion. The mansion that he goes to, I think, was owned by Arthur Sullivan of the famous Gilbert and Sullivan operetta team. And my cousin actually got married at that place. So that's kind of a cool piece of trivia. And when I went there for his wedding in, when was it? God, 1986 or 87 or something like that. Maybe it was 88. I went there and I went, wow, this is the house from Asylum. So I think people can rent it for occasions, or you can just go and visit it because it is a kind of famous museum also, because of course, Arthur Sullivan is one of the most famous. I think he was the lyricist. Maybe he was the music writer. I'm drawing a blank on this right now. But Gilbert and Sullivan wrote The Mikado and Pirates of Penzance and all that kind of stuff. But Asylum is a great film. It's also got, I think it has Charlotte Rampling and Susan George. It's got Robert Powell in it, who I mentioned, who played Mahler in a film by Ken Russell. And it's also got Patrick McGee in it. So this is a really cool film and has some really wild stuff in it. Also a great Halloween watch. So check out Asylum if you can. Um, Tales from the Crypt is uploaded on YouTube. Yep. It might be streaming also. So this is one of those films that won't go away. It's been on every single format. So there's obviously people who still want to watch these. Oh, and incidentally, just on another divergent note, if anybody out there knows the great British kind of horror comedy TV series called The League of Gentlemen, the guys who made the comedy team who made the League of Gentlemen were huge fans of these Amicus productions, and I think there's even an extra on the little set of the League of Gentlemen series where they're talking about how they love Asylum and Tales from the Crypt and From Beyond the Grave, all those portmanteau films. So if you're a fan of League of Gentlemen, definitely look for the extra where they're talking about that, because they're really these, you can tell they're fans because they talk about all this minutia related to those films. And also, if you have not watched League of Gentlemen, you've got to watch this because there is no there's no television series like it. Would you say, Mrs. D?
Probably not.
Yeah, and it's got all kinds of great stuff in it. But so yeah, Tales from the Crypt, Asylum, From Beyond the Grave, and then yes, well, Dano would know because he would probably have actually been able to see it when it was on. So I saw it when it was on. So I was still living in the UK at the time. But are you local? Because this is a local shop for local people. So that's all you need to know. Um, Next, I've got, and this is kind of a left turn from the stuff we're talking about. And this is a great film called Inside Number Nine is excellent too. That's right. And it's some of the same people making it. Next film I'm talking about is Elvis on Tour. Yes, it's an Elvis film. And I am an Elvis fan. And this is Elvis on tour in 1972. And basically, without going into the massive history of Elvis, after Elvis did a few residencies in Las Vegas in the late 60s, he decided he was done with filmmaking, told the colonel, I'm not doing that anymore. I want to go out and play shows like I used to. And that's what he did. His whole thing was, I want to get back in touch with my fans. He was really nervous about it because Elvis had not, when he went and played in Las Vegas, he hadn't played live in something like 8 or 9 years. So he was actually fearful going out to play live again. So anyway, after he got all these shows in Las Vegas out of the way, and actually you can see these shows. There's a Elvis film called That's the Way It Is. They document some of these shows. And then he started going out for real without the um, just idea of making a movie, although a movie did get made. So he's going out and he's on tour and he's playing shows in regular old coliseums in towns across the United States. And Elvis on Tour is basically a document of, I think, a week or two where he goes out. And these are the super famous shows where he has the red, white, and the blue jumpsuits. And incidentally, Elvis started wearing the jumpsuits in Las Vegas, and Mick Jagger saw this and went, I want a jumpsuit like Elvis. And so Mick Jagger started wearing jumpsuits on the Rolling Stones 72 tour directly because of Elvis. So if you guys want to have a little convo about who looks better in a white jumpsuit, Elvis or Mick Jagger, um, I'm going to go with Elvis, I think. And that just goes until the end. So Elvis is great in this, and the songs are great. The band is amazing. And I would say like 72 is peak Elvis. I mean, if you've never,
Told him about how we went to Memphis.
I haven't gotten there yet.
You maybe told him on the
Maybe before, I'm not sure. But anyway, after Elvis was gone, quite a while after Elvis was gone in the 90s, um, Elvis Presley Enterprises decided to do, once the technology got good enough. Now hold on now, Dano, because when you look at Elvis in 72, Elvis is fighting fit. So eventually later, yes, when Elvis did not care anymore, but in 72, Elvis was still what he used to call making the weight. So he used to refer to it like a boxer because he would basically have a target weight to hit before he went out on tour or did anything. And he used to train like a boxer. He'd get on a treadmill, he'd jump rope, and he would just drink copious amounts of water and wouldn't eat forever. So it was crazy and probably had a little help on a pharmaceutical level. But Anyway, in the 90s, once the tech got good enough, they put Elvis's band back together because all of his band members were still alive, the original band from the 70s. And then they got uh, footage from Elvis on tour, and they isolated Elvis's voice because they had the multi-tracks, and the band played live to Elvis's voice isolated. And because the PAs were about 100 times better than in the 70s, I actually went to see, I think the very first time they did this, the very first tour they did this on, I went to see it in London at Wembley Arena. And they had this giant PA, and they ran the thing exactly like an Elvis show. So they even had an intermission. I think the opening set was like 35 or 40 minutes, and Elvis came out and did another 20 minutes or 25 minutes. But this was amazing sounding. And they had all the jokes that Elvis used to tell to the audience, and the audience just reacted to the jokes Elvis was telling, and it was super cool. And and it also sounded amazing because they just had a giant PA system, and it was just dialed in really good. The band played live, and they had Elvis, just to hear Elvis's voice super loud like that over a big PA was something really impressive and gave you chills. I mean, it was just an amazing thing to hear. So they uh, rebooted this thing maybe in the 2000s or something. I think they maybe did it once or twice more, and then they took a break. Then in the 2000s, they rebooted it for a few shows, and one of which was at the FedEx Forum in Memphis. Jennifer and I went up there for, which anniversary was it? Was it like the 25th after his death? Maybe. So whatever 77 plus 25 was. And so Jennifer and I, for a laugh, thought, let's go up to Memphis for Elvis Week for the 25th anniversary, and let's go to one of these shows that they're going to do. And so we went up there, and that's what we did. I think it was the hottest time of the year because it's August in Memphis. And it was the hottest day
Yeah.
of the year. It was so hot, people actually died, I think. So we went up there. It was crazy. We stayed at the Peabody. Um, Priscilla was there. She came out and walked out, and she walked out with the ducks. They do this thing where they've got a bunch of ducks that live up on the roof. They bring them down, and the ducks walk across the lobby to a fountain in the lobby at the Peabody. This is something they've done for a long time. It's a really weird thing to see if you guys are ever in Memphis, which I recommend just as a place. Memphis is, there's no place in the US like Memphis. You got to go there. It's wild. So they had the ducks walk out, Priscilla walked out, and then later we went to see the rebooted Elvis thing. It wasn't quite as amazing as when I first saw it in London. They had some technical stuff going on or whatever, but they still had the original band. It sounded amazing. And okay, I've been talking about Elvis for 20 minutes, and you guys are going, okay, I have other stuff to do now. But as a very last side note on this, um, Baz Luhrmann, who did make the Elvis movie, recently came out, maybe, when was it, a few years ago or something, which I'm not a fan of. I mean, I think, okay, it's kind of interesting or whatever. But he actually gained access to, I think, all of the stock footage, all of the original footage for Elvis on tour. from 72. And I think he's working on a project that that he's going to restore all of the original footage and put it out as kind of a rebooted Elvis on tour. And it goes by the name Epic, which is Elvis. It's called Elvis on tour something. Elvis Presley in concert something. I think it's Elvis Presley in concert, but um, that's the thing that's happening. And I think he took maybe 5 or 10 minutes of it to some film festival and showed it and just made people's jaw drop on the floor. And I think it's going to be an IMAX presentation, Dano. So Elvis will be able to fit. Or is IMAX big enough for Elvis even? I don't personally think he is, but anyway, that's Elvis on tour. And if you guys are, want to take a dip, that's a good way to see really the authentic Elvis Presley playing in front of real crowds. And it's a cool thing. And there's also, for you Melvins fans out there, there are little Easter eggs dropped all over the Melvins catalog when I was in the band because I helped them to become massive Elvis fans. We went to Graceland together and we actually had somebody take us to kind of some secret places in Memphis when we were there. And so that was kind of an awesome thing that we were privileged to be able to do. Anyway, God bless Elvis, and we're going to move along now. And okay, we're at 106. So let's see, maybe we'll do 2 more. So the next one I'm going to do is also from 1972, and it is The Getaway. This is a great Sam Peckinpah film, really a road movie. And it is, in fact, a getaway. And you've got basically, starts out with, it's got Steve McQueen, Ali McGraw. It's got some regular Sam Peckinpah guys in it. It's got Ben Johnson in it, Slim Pickens. And this is an awesome movie. And it's basically, there's a basically, Steve McQueen is a bank robber who is in prison. And his wife decides that she's just had enough. Both of them have had enough. And there's somebody that they can go to get a favor done to get him out. And that favor is basically he needs to knock off a bank and then he's going to be scot-free. That's basically the price of him getting out of prison. So him getting out of prison also has a couple of other caveats connected to it. He gets out, he does a bank robbery, and then things start going really sideways, and he basically needs to deal with this whole other element that he wasn't counting on, him and Ali McGraw. So this is one of Peckinpah's great movies, and I think there is a hideous remake of it. Once again, why do they always remake great movies? I mean, just remake awful movies. That's what I think. Don't remake the good ones because instantly, I don't know, these kind of decisions to make this just must be made at drunken parties in the Hollywood Hills or something because they just seem like the worst ideas in the world. I mean, would somebody want to remake a Beastie Boys record, or like a Led Zeppelin record? Doesn't seem like a good idea, does it? Hey, let's remake what shall we remake? Let's make let's remake let's remake Hell Awaits by Slayer. How's about that for an idea? Or, Only the Lonely by Frank Sinatra. Seems plausible. I think it could sell, right? You guys don't know what any of those albums are you? Do you? I don't know. You're just used to me. So anyway, think of a great, great classic record, and then think of it being remade.
Maybe they can put their ideas.
Yeah, put your ideas for really classic movies that should be remade. Let's get that out there, okay? Although it actually it hasn't stopped some people from getting metaphysical about it. For example, Michael Haneke, who made the really, really distressing film Funny Games, actually remade that in English. So he remade his own film. Yeah, Al Lettieri. Yeah, exactly. That guy's awesome. One of the standard Peckinpah people, really good. Yeah, he's absolutely loathsome in it. Oh, and also, what's her name? Sally Sutherland. Is that her name? Sally Sutherland, I think, who plays, what's her name in All in the Family? Struthers. Sally Struthers is in it. So they're all great. Yeah. But anyway, The Getaways also, and just on a tiny, tiny side note, I was still more or less a kid living in El Paso when that movie was made, 13, maybe 14 years old at the most. And I remember that I was reading in the paper that the movie was being made there because that was big news in El Paso, that Sam Peckinpah was making a movie there. I think the biggest news was that Steve McQueen and Ally McGraw were making a movie there. So they were in the papers a little bit. They're making a movie here, they're real movie stars. And this was coinciding with the first concert that I would ever go to. And that concert was, in fact, Elton John on the Madman Across the Water tour. So Elton John played this show at the Sun Bowl. And I remember thinking, I can't believe it. This is really cool because I love the album Madman Across the Water at the time. Obviously, it's a great classic album. Can you think of who might remake it to make it better? I don't know. Anyway, so went out to the concert, saw it by myself. My parents dropped me off, I think due to some conflicts or something. My friend John could not make it out there, who was my best friend. And later, I think a few days later, I actually read that I saw a picture of Steve McQueen and Ally McGraw at that concert, sitting in the crowd watching it. So that's kind of a cool thing. I watched a concert with Ally McGraw and Steve McQueen. And it was a great concert. And then also, I remember reading something about the producer of the film. I think it was Roger. Wait, who was the producer of that? It was the same guy who produced The Godfather. Robert Town, not Robert Town. They made a cartoon series out of it. But I'm not remembering this. This is extreme film trivia here. But the producer was Ally McGraw's boyfriend at the time. They were a couple. And then I remember and then they weren't a couple after she went to make the movie Getaway with Steve McQueen. And then later, he basically said that was the dumbest decision I ever made, was to send my girlfriend out to make a movie with Steve McQueen. So this is true. Oh, it's Robert Evans. That's who it is. And there was a really cool little cartoon series made about Robert Evans being a kind of undercover spy for the CIA or something. Anyway, this is extreme film trivia. So that's more than you ever wanted to know about The Getaway. But The Getaway is an awesome film, and I recommend it highly. And you know what? I'm going to stop there because that's enough now. And the next movie is going to have me talking about it for 20 minutes. So that's what I've got for you guys today. And thanks for being here. And remember to check out my Patreon page. Yeah, that's someplace I'll get to that eventually. So my base level of Patreon is basically $10 a month, and it's the price of a couple of cups of coffee. And if you guys can afford that for 1 month, you can see all the great stuff I'm making there, writing about all of this stuff. You can also get a copy of the newest piece of music that I just put out. I haven't actually put out a new big piece of music in probably years at this point because I've been busy having to make a living and stuff like that. This is a 70-minute piece, and it is a kind of ambient analog synthesizer piece. And if you join my Patreon page, you can actually get it for free. You can get a copy of it. So you're here on YouTube. You can also stream it here on YouTube. And then also it's at my Bandcamp page.
Dano says he'll be in the hospital this time next week.
No, I hope you're going to be okay. I hope it's nothing serious. And so, yeah, remember to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, my Patreon channel. You can also join for free and see the kind of stuff that's going on there. Bandcamp, take a look there. You can also stream all of my stuff at Bandcamp. So I would appreciate you guys going over there and also just subscribing or liking or following. You can do any of that stuff over there. And I think we're done for today. Anything else? Oh, you can buy me a coffee or a libation. And you can also now send a contribution directly through PayPal at me. So all of these links are going to be there. It's paypal.me. And anything you can do to help me subscribe, I genuinely appreciate it. And thanks for you guys being here. Always look forward to doing this. And I will see you again soon. So take care. Good luck, Dano. And glad to hear it's not major. And happy week to everybody out there.